Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going to try and cut through all the noise, all the self-help and productivity hacks.
We're focusing on one single path.
A powerful one. We're doing a deep dive into the hidden power of stillness, but not as some, mystical practice. We're talking about it as a biological function.
Exactly. We've been looking at sources that really challenge our modern obsession with constant action, struggle.
Right.
And our mission today is to pull back the curtain on the neurobiology of it all. How just closing your eyes can genuinely be a shortcut to clarity and real inner strength.
And that's where the central paradox kicks in, right? It's the perfect place to start.
It is.
If your life is just full of noise, urgent demands, deadlines, problems, doing nothing, intentionally closing your eyes and breathing, how can that possibly lead to the strength you need to solve all those problems?
And our sources push back hard on that old idea. The idea that if you're not struggling, you're not striving. What the research suggests is that this isn't really counterintuitive at all. It's more like a return to a natural biological default setting that we've just paved over with constant stimulation.
I think we've all felt that moment of relief when you just step away from your screen for a minute.
That's your mind begging to go back to that default state.
And I think everyone listening can relate to that feeling of just pure exhaustion. Have you ever noticed there's a moment when you are completely overwhelmed and you close your eyes for 5 seconds?
When the chaos just recedes.
It just recedes for a moment. The sources we looked at, they argued that this tiny bit of relief is actually a crucial clue, a clue to our mind's optimal wiring. And that relief, that's our starting point today.
So let's unpack the problem first, this default setting, or as some of our sources call it, the automatic pilot.
And the core revelation here, which can be honestly a little shattering when you first hear it.
It can be.
Is that for the vast majority of our waking hours, we aren't actually operating with conscious intent. Not really. We're being driven by instinct and by these continuous streams of automatic thought.
Just think about it this way, when you first wake up in the morning, and maybe you reach for your phone to check email or scroll social media.
I'll do it.
And then suddenly 30 minutes have gone by, and you haven't actually decided why you did any of that. That's the automatic pilot. That's your subconscious running the show.
And all those processes create this constant sort of low-grade layer of mental turbulence, of tension.
Yeah.
So if we spend our lives in that state, the big question becomes, what's really controlling your outcomes? Is it your conscious, deliberate mind? Or is it all those automatic thoughts running without your permission?
And usually the answer is the latter, which, that prevents us from getting to our highest level processing functions.
So the goal of stillness, then, according to this material, it's about reclaiming that choice.
Reclaiming the ability to choose your response instead of just being pulled along by subconscious reactions. It's about learning how to step into that deepest region of tranquility in the mind.
And this is where the science comes in, which is the fascinating part. This region of tranquility, it isn't some difficult, advanced state you have to achieve.
No. The sources suggest it's our biological default. And the foundational research that proves this, it comes from the work of a man named Jose Silva.
And his discovery of the alpha state.
And what's so interesting here is that Silva didn't just talk about relaxation in a vague sense. He identified a specific, measurable brainwave frequency that's associated with it.
Okay, so let's get technical for a second. What is alpha?
Well, our brains generate waves depending on what we're doing. When we're wide awake, critically thinking, rushing, planning, stressing.
The normal state for most of us.
The normal state, that's called beta. But alpha is slower. It's that calm every morning and every night.
Right, so beta waves are fast. They're focused on the outside world.
Exactly. And alpha waves, they're slower, around 8 to 12 hertz. They signal a state of deep, internalized focus. This is where your mind is relaxed but still highly receptive. It's ready for learning, creativity, and recovery.
It's what you dip into right after waking up, before the big wave of beta-level stress hits you for the day.
That's the one.
Okay, and this is where it gets really, really interesting. This is the part that connects our emotional state directly to the biological hardware. The sources talk about this astonishing rule of the alpha state. It acts like an emotional gatekeeper.
This is the crucial detail. You literally cannot carry heavy emotional turmoil, and they're specific about this, things like guilt or anger, into this deeply relaxed, restorative alpha state.
Wait, hold on. You're saying if I am actively, holding on to resentment or intense stress, my brain biologically rejects the alpha frequency?
Precisely. The moment those negative, turbulent emotions surge, your mind automatically pops out of alpha.
Pops out.
It reverts immediately back to the faster, more critical beta frequency. It's a self-protective mechanism. It ensures that the deepest region of your mind is only accessible when it feels safe and light. You can't force serenity if your inner state is chaotic.
Wow. The implication of that is just huge. So if the brain automatically kicks you out of this healing state whenever stress is present, what does that mean for our physical health? When we spend all day resisting that stillness.
It means we are constantly blocking our own maintenance, our own repair systems.
So the healing mechanisms are always there.
They're always present and operational. But when those layers of mental tension are finally allowed to disappear in the alpha state, the body's natural self-healing mechanisms can finally function without being constantly inhibited by fight-or-flight stress hormones.
So it shifts the body from defense to recovery.
From a perpetual state of defense to a state of recovery and repair.
Yes. That completely redefines healing then. It's not something you have to fight for.
It's something you grant permission for.
By getting out of your own way.
By getting out of your own way. And that perspective is why so many beginners get frustrated. They'll sit down, they try to access this state, and they report back, my mind is still busy, or I don't feel anything.
They're looking for the wrong thing.
Exactly. They mistake the goal for some complex visualization or a totally empty mind, when the goal is actually just being in that protective brain state. They've likely dipped into alpha their entire lives without realizing they could consciously access it.
Okay, so if alpha is our natural recovery state, and we know our mind is pre-wired for it, how do we get there? Consciously and reliably. This brings us to the true nature of this practice, right? Moving away from struggle and towards effortless return.
This is the core aha moment from the sources, the big definitional shift.
Okay.
Meditation or stillness practice.
It's not about making the mind quiet. That implies a fight, a struggle against your own thoughts.
Which feels impossible sometimes.
It is. Instead, it's about returning to the region where the mind is already quiet by its very nature. The tranquility is already there, you just have to get to it. So the goal is to gently descend to that layer, instead of trying to wrestle with all the thoughts on the surface.
Absolutely. The approach detailed in the sources is, well, it's non-forceful by design. There's no coercion, no internal antagonism, no struggling to achieve a blank mind.
So what does it involve?
It involves descending to a deep layer where you can simply observe your thoughts. Like they're clouds floating by. You see them, you recognize them. But crucially, you don't let yourself get pulled away by the reaction or the judgment that usually comes with them.
That difference, observing versus reacting, that seems like the first real step towards self-mastery.
It is.
But you mentioned this works because of neurobiology, not just effort. So how do we mechanically trigger this state change?
We use biological triggers. Specific instructions for the nervous system that kind of bypass the critical beta mind. The sources highlight two incredibly practical tools. First, counting backward from 100 just slows down your mental processing. And second, directing your eyes upward.
Directing the eyes upward. That sounds oddly specific.
It is specific because it's a biological lever. The sources mention directing the eyes upward at about 20 degrees.
20 degrees.
Yes. That particular eye position, when you combine it with the counting, it's a direct instruction to your brain to start generating alpha waves. It's repeatable, it's predictable, it's a neuroscientific shortcut. It works, whether you believe in it or not.
That's the ultimate hack, then. It's an instruction manual for tuning your own nervous system. You're literally using the mechanics of your brain to downshift your frequency.
And once you access that alpha layer, you can start to use the primary tool for mental conditioning, which is something called the mind screen.
We should probably define that clearly for everyone listening. What exactly is the mind screen?
Think of it as your focused internal workspace. It's like a mental blank canvas, maybe 3 feet in front of you, slightly above eye level. And it's where you project images or ideas or problems, but only the ones you consciously choose to bring forward.
So it takes your scattered thoughts and gives them one single point of focus.
A highly concentrated point of focus, but within that calm alpha state.
And using this mind screen consistently provides this 3-part training, which kind of lays the groundwork for all the higher functions.
Exactly. First, you gain the ability to concentrate deeply, to move past distraction. Second, the ability to visualize clearly, using that screen to work through scenarios or creative ideas. And third, the highest function, the ability to actually control the brain itself, to hold it gently in that alpha state when you choose.
It sounds like tuning the instrument before you ask it to compose the symphony.
That's a great analogy.
This sustained presence in alpha. It's the foundation for everything else. Problem solving, creativity, intuition.
It's the difference between working hard and working smart. When you try to solve a complex problem in beta, you're using a turbulent, stressed-out mind. When you approach it in alpha, you're accessing a clear, open, receptive intelligence.
So we've covered the problem, the biological solution, and the specific tools. For you, listening at home, trying to integrate this into a busy life, we've synthesized all this into 5 core foundational lessons. Actionable shifts in how you see your inner world.
And the first lesson is probably the most liberating one, is that peace is a return, not a search.
We're so conditioned to think peace has to be earned or found somewhere out there, in a new job, a new relationship, a vacation.
Right. But these sources argue that peace is the mind's natural state. It's something you return to. And stillness is just the biological door back home. It's a resting place that's always, always available.
Okay, lesson 2. This one focuses on healing. The mind as self-healer.
Your mind, your body. They have this automatic healing mechanism, but it needs deep, uninterrupted stillness to work properly. If you're constantly flooding your system with stress signals, you're just inhibiting that natural recovery system.
So the only thing needed is space.
The only intervention needed is the space to heal.
The third lesson tackles genius and creativity. The idea that creativity, wisdom, intuition, they don't come from effort.
They don't come from struggle. They emerge when you access the alpha layer, that state where the mind is expanded and receptive, but fundamentally not chaotic. Real breakthroughs happen in the quiet, not the noise.
Let's move to the fourth lesson, which is about how we approach problems.
True problem solving doesn't start with thinking, at least not the kind of thinking we're used to.
Which, as we established, is often just more automatic thoughts, more confusion.
Exactly. It starts with listening. Listening to the deeper, quiet insights that only become available when you're still. Trying to solve a complex issue while you're stuck in beta is just stirring up the mud.
And finally, the fifth foundational lesson. This one really redefines what true self-mastery is.
A person who masters their mind isn't someone who suppresses every single thought. That's impossible and exhausting.
So what is it then?
True mastery is the learned skill of knowing how to observe those thoughts without reacting, recognizing them as transient clouds passing across your mind screen, and then choosing not to chase after them.
So if we connect all of this to the bigger picture, the core concept reinforced here is that true stillness. It isn't some esoteric ritual.
Not at all. It's not complex. It's not time-consuming. It's simply accessing your mind's natural, biologically programmed state of recovery and calm.
It's less about adopting a new belief and more about engaging a built-in lever.
Precisely. By understanding these specific biological mechanisms, that emotional gatekeeping of alpha, the specific eye position, the countdown, you can step out of that old paradigm of effortful struggle.
And move toward effortless creation and genuine self-mastery.
You're just giving your brain the right instructions to do what it already knows how to do.
So here's a final provocative thought for you to carry into your day. If the simple conscious act of looking up and counting down can biologically generate a frequency where turbulent emotions like anger and guilt literally cannot exist, what other seemingly impossible emotional shifts like, say, transforming persistent anxiety into curiosity, are accessible through simple biological tuning that we have yet to even explore? Something for you to mull over the next time you decide to close your eyes.